Okay, hello world, or humans as M likes to say. This is V speaking right now, and we're going to get ready to dive into the topic of, well, it's a little misleading, I'll be honest, but I titled this video Astrology, Feminine Meets Masculine, and you're just going to hear my story, and M is going to do a couple of clarifying questions. But that's basically what's going to happen and what kind of led me to astrology. So it won't be about astrology per se, at least not in its entirety. It'll be my leading up to it. So just giving you a heads up. If you want to hear about astrology, you might have to wait for another video. I don't know if I'll do one, but that's just what I wanted to let you guys know. So to start things off and jump right in, it all started out at one point. It just kind of came to a head. There was a time where I just hated being female. It wasn't like I felt transgender, so I felt like I was still myself, cisgender. But I just, it felt like you have these different things in the world. We have racism, we have sexism, we have all of these different isms. The one that I most identified with was being female, and I hated it. And it wasn't something that I thought about every single day, but it was enough to where it like literally came to a head. I ended up crying on my at my computer desk, and I was just screaming to God, "Why am I a female? Why was I made into a woman? Why was I born into this life?" And at that moment, something miraculous happened. I ended up learning that I was abused as a child, not sexually, so please don't worry about me. I'm okay. I don't want to give by the false impression, but I learned that I was abused in other ways. Mentally, for example, sometimes emotionally. And there's a lot that goes into it that I don't have the time to get into. But suffice it to say that it was in that same moment I learned what true female empowerment was. And I wrote in my notes hashtag Jesus. I won't go too far into it, but I personally believe that Jesus represents the woman in the Holy Trinity. So you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's the typical one. My version of it is the man, the woman, and the child. So in that case, Jesus is in the middle. Therefore, Jesus would be the woman, and that gave me empowerment because I felt like I could be a woman and I could be strong in my power, just like Jesus was strong in his power. There is a lot of power that comes with being a woman, but it has been taken away from us and we've forgotten about it. So next in my notes, I have like water pouring over me. It was as if wisdom from the stars was being poured over me, and I would take cat naps, just cat naps around the way. And when I would do that, I would wake back up, and I actually had the astrology zodiac signs written on a whiteboard in my room. I would wake up and look at the whiteboard with all the astrology signs, and information would be poured into me, such as this is feminine energy, this is masculine energy. So I started to learn, oh my God, what is the difference between the two? One of them is I titled hashtag disrespect. Um, what I mean by that is I learned that masculinity is really, how can you put it? Masculinity shows what disrespect is. If the masculine is disrespected, you'll know it. When the feminine is disrespected, you'll know it, but you'll know it in a different way. It's a little hard for me to describe, but that's what I learned. Masculinity and femininity. One of the things that shows the difference between them is the disrespect.
Then,
So go ahead.
so for like, so for that portion, yeah, it might be hard to describe, but can you give like an example? I guess then I might be able to understand a bit better what you mean.
So if you talk to a grown man like he's a child, for example, micromanaging, telling him what to do. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you go wipe down the counter, by the way, for me. Make sure you clean the kitchen sink. You know, something that might seem like okay for a woman to hear, but to a man, that's almost like disrespect. It's like, I'm a grown man. Why should you be telling me to go do this? I feel disrespected. Um, to a certain extent, you can do this to a woman, but not, I would say, not in the same way. Sorry, I'm trying to find my stopwatch. She's more receptive to that type of language. This is a horrible example. I can tell now as I'm speaking. That's just one. I had an example, otherwise I wouldn't have put it as a bullet point. But it's hard for me to describe.
I mean, from hearing it, like the example you gave, and tell me if I'm completely off with this, it sounds like it sounds disrespectful because the idea, right, is that the man is already doing some type of work outside the home. So that when the other person is asking him to do something else, there's this underlying thing that, like, what you're doing now is not enough.
That could be a part of it.
Completely off.
I was taking it a different direction.
Okay.
But we'll go with the example of I already work outside the home. Like, why should I worry about quote unquote women stuff or quote unquote other people's jobs? Sorry, go ahead.
I would think, like, I don't know from what perspective you're thinking of it, but I would say that women are more disrespected when their feelings for someone is challenged. Like how much they care for someone. Whereas for a man, that example is more of like challenging the amount of work, physical work that's put in taking care of people.
I would say it's about being seen as a child. For example, at my work, I have a manager who leaves little lists of stuff for me to do. I'm like in my head thinking to myself, I know how to do my job. Don't tell me how to do my job. Don't give me this list. It's disrespectful to give me this list because it's treating me like a child. I'm the only one that gets the list. I look over at the other cash registers. Nobody else has the list, but V has the list. Why is that? Oh, well, because you gotta treat her like a little kid. Because I have so many questions and I don't know what I'm doing. For example, it comes across that way. So, like, it's less about the amount of work that needs to be done, and it's more about the. Sorry.
I think what's getting like, well, I guess where I'm getting confused, right, is because we've had this conversation before where like feminine masculine energy doesn't necessarily have to be entirely connected to what a man or what a woman is supposed to be, right? But for your example, the male energy is the pride in one's work, whereas the feminine energy is the humbleness to be able to receive direction.
Yes, I would say that's definitely one way it can manifest. I like that. You put the words right where I needed them. See? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It makes sense. It's so hard, guys. If you're listening right now, it's so hard to do this live. But it's okay behind the scenes when you're making the notes. It's okay when you're not being recorded. But when you actually have to do the recording, your brain just shuts right off. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And also, I mean, we're putting it in challenge mode. We're only giving small notes to each other. So a lot of it is just on the fly conversation. So
Yep.
Thank you guys for bearing with us in our discovery of each other's knowledge or thought process.
Yes. Well, just to kind of move on, we're about 10 minutes in. To move away from that, if I remember it, I'll come back to it at some point. But um, I have that astrology as my next point. Astrology comes to life, and I wish I could put on the screen. I'll see if I can do it. I may or may not, depends on how lazy I am. But astrology comes in 12 signs. You divide that by 3, and you have 4 signs for each sign. You have the first one, the second column, and the third column. The second column is what I call the woman's column because she's the second in the list, and then the first column is for children, The third column is for men. So 1, 2, 3. And you can actually interchange all of this, but just for the sake of the recording and for understanding, we'll leave it at that. Feminine energy that you learn about in astrology is really the second column from Leo, Virgo, fire, earth, air, Libra, and then Scorpio. Those are the most feminine signs in the zodiac using just this particular setup. You can, it's like a puzzle. You can mix it, or Tetris, I should say. You can mix and match it many different ways. Um, but yeah, it came to life, and I called it the Tesseract because you can move it around like a bunch of different Tetris pieces. And I wrote down alchemy. Um, the whole point is the whole point of this, my message, is feminine meets masculine. What I mean by that is I learned that my femininity is very um, strong and it's powerful and it's to be regarded with such great respect. And I won't go too much detail because I don't want to confuse any of the audience members, but astrology really changed my life. It it's just, I don't know, the puzzle of life is what I would call it. It's the test. Like the more you study it, the more things you can get out of it. It's really juicy. It's like a alchemy buffet, and you just come and eat and take whatever you want, and it's amazing. I can't describe it in this video for time's sake. But are there any other questions that you wanted to ask?
Um, it's towards the ending part.
Mm-hmm.
Not the ending part, the beginning part. See,
Mm-hmm.
even with the columns, I'm confused. It can be in the beginning, it can be in the middle, it can be in the end.
Exactly. Exactly.
um, in the beginning, you said that you hated being a woman. I guess I would kind of want like examples. Like, what sort of things made you like, ah, heck, I don't like this way that I have to be a woman.
So my dad, it was three of us. I was the oldest out of three. It went me, my brother, and my sister in that order. Sometimes when we would get in trouble, my sister might cry, I might cry, but my brother was not allowed to cry. And there have been times where my dad would punch my brother in his chest. My brother is not a big guy. Like now, okay, whatever. But as a little kid, he was already scrawny. He was anemic at one point. He would get punched in the chest and be told to stop crying.
Mm.
And I mean, it wasn't a regular occurrence. I won't say that. I'm not going to throw it out there like that always happened. But even once was enough for me to just be like, I don't want to cry either. I said to myself, if my brother can't cry, then I can't cry, because that's not fair to him. My dad would say, I have two daughters, not three. So I was like, so it must be bad to be a daughter then. It must be bad you're over here like saying stuff like that. And um, that was just one of the things. Other things like not being allowed to wear makeup, not being allowed to wear certain clothing. I distinctly remember when I was a little girl, I had this cheetah print shirt. I don't know if it was from my Mima or what, but I wanted to wear it to school. I must have been in kindergarten or first grade. My dad said, my daughter is not a hoochie mama. You can't wear that shirt." So
Mm.
there is, I remember I had clear nail polish. It wasn't mine actually; it was someone else's, and I was not allowed to wear nail polish, let alone makeup. I put just enough on my thumb, thinking it wouldn't hurt anybody because it's clear nail polish. What's it gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
When I got caught, because they could smell it in the bathroom, it lingered. I got in trouble. Probably got a butt whooping if I remember correctly. Got a lot of those, but that's just some other stuff. But before I continue, we're about 15 minutes in, so just want to get you guys a reminder to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like what you're hearing. Maybe don't like the sad parts, but you know what we
Yay!
mean. All right. So, anyways, yeah, that was just some stuff that bothered me, and those are just small examples of. I mean, last one, and I'll let you ask whatever you want to ask. My
Mm-hmm.
mom told me that when I was a little girl, I was sitting in the car, and I remember this. I didn't remember at the time, but when she told me the story, I remembered it happening. she said that there came a time when I said, does daddy even love me? Does daddy even care for me? So I didn't even know if he loved me or not. And I still remember that feeling. And it's just all these little things and other things that went on in my life that just made me hate being a woman. I'm not allowed to be who I want to be as a woman.
Mm.
So, yeah.
It's interesting, like, hearing your stories about why you hated being a woman. It's usually through the context of your relationship with your dad, which makes me wonder, like, I mean, your mom wears nail polish, right? And I've never seen your mom wear cheetah print, but hey, maybe. I don't know. Like, it, during that time, was there, like, what did you think of your mom? Like, your relationship with your mom? If you don't mind talking about it, or we can just skip that question.
I mean, it wasn't a bad relationship. I mean, my relationship with her didn't get rocky until I got older.
Mm-hmm.
But in my younger years, I had always admired my mom. I loved her very much. So
Mm-hmm.
she agreed with my dad on stuff like no makeup or no nail polish. Although I did do a little bit when I was a little girl, I must have been in kindergarten, and it was for a birthday party, and I begged and begged and begged. So they're like, okay, fine. And then when I showed my dad, he was very disapproving of it. But
Mm-hmm.
she was my little safe haven. I'll put it like that.
Mm, I see, I see. So then, I guess the other part that I was curious about, mm, because I threw it out there in the middle of this conversation, but maybe I misunderstood from our previous conversation what you thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think masculine and feminine energies are like a roadmap on how women and men should interact or be?
I don't believe that all men are masculine, and I don't believe that all women are feminine.
Okay.
Obviously, we have both energies because we come from a male and a female. It took an egg and a sperm. However you want to put it, science has only had an egg and a sperm, even if it's been a manufactured sperm. Still it's been a sperm. So
Mm-hmm.
we have both energies, and I think we lean as individuals. We might lean to one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think for the grand mass scale of humanity on the earth, most men are masculine and most women are feminine. Just that's just on a global scale.
Mm.
But I think closer to home, especially in Washington, we don't really have that problem. Like you are just a mixed match of everything. You're just androgynous.
Wait, me specifically or like?
Oh no, Washington in general. Like
Oh,
the people
okay.
that I work with, I think we have some queer people that I work with. I've seen queer people come through the store that I work at.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with any of these things. It's just I think, a manifestation of the different energies showing up how they want to be. They might be queer, but that doesn't mean that they're gay. They could, what is that called? Metrosexual? Like, where guys look gay, but they're actually straight.
Yeah, I think that's metrosexual, but I'm not sure. I don't know if like the term had changed now.
I
Like
think it's
just
still the same. By the way, we're almost at 20 minutes, and my cutoff is at 25. So,
okay. So actually, I thought the part of you saying like for you, Jesus had become a symbol of femininity,
mm-hmm.
and I think for a lot of the viewers that aren't into astrology and don't know a lot about it, I
Mm-hmm.
think talking about the rule. Oh wait, we are going to talk about the rule of three in later videos, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Then stay tuned for that, people.
Yeah.
Humans.
Mhm.
Alright. But now that you've found astrology, do you ever still have those lingering feelings of like disliking your being a woman?
No, in fact, I was just watching a video on this lady about femininity before we got on Skype.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to learn. When I was a kid, I was very feminine, but as I've gotten older, I've become more excuse me, I don't want to say masculine in nature, if that's the proper term, but I'm not as feminine as I used to be. Maybe because it was kind of stamped out of me, but
Mm,
I would like to rekindle. I guess the thing that bothers me is I feel like the femininity that is packaged by this woman that I'm talking to is the kind where it's like wear makeup and dresses and high heels and just be positive and receive
mm,
from your man. And that's not my style now. I think it's a lot of it is also like anxiety too. So
mm,
I'm afraid of receiving from men because not all men have the best intentions. Not that there aren't good ones. But my femininity is probably a little bit more on the darker side. I love wearing black. Um, when I
mm.
get the money, I might do some black claws. I love those, maybe for Halloween or something. I don't know. But yeah, sorry, that's my answer.
Oh, okay. Which actually brings up a point that I was curious about. Like, for Western ideals of femininity, do you think they match with femininity, with feminine energy,
Hmm.
and what that entails?
For today's time, I don't believe that most Western women, I'll say American women, because there's Europe and Canada, but we're not going to talk about those ladies. Um, the American women, I think, are trying so hard to be masculine.
Oh,
Yeah.
you no. Okay, you're back.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I was audience out there, please endure my yelling because I think my audio may still continue. But yeah,
Okay.
um, I'm gonna wrap this up. We're at 23 minutes. Um, American women, I believe, are striving so hard to become masculine because they're rejecting what I would call traditional femininity, and I think out of fear. So that's what I believe.
Mm. So wait, I'm curious. Do you think there's a distinction between the the idea of femininity versus feminine energy in astrology?
I think that traditional femininity, as I'll call it, is limited. There's so many facets to being feminine energy that um, it feels almost impossible to sit here and explain all the ways that you can be
Mm,
feminine. I say traditional femininity so that I can distinct make a distinction between that bubblegum bubble pop femininity.
okay.
So I'm about to cut this short.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but anything else you want to say before you let go to the audience?
No, just that, thank you, V, for sharing.
I did
Hats off.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to hear your perspective on things and how you got into astrology. Yeah, just thank you for sharing. Thank you for opening up about it.
Thank you guys for listening. We tried to make it a little bit longer, but we're going to end it here. And we appreciate all of your help. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to end this because I'm going over it, and that's my own rule. Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.